Trusonians. And I'm about to have a fit already. I'm about to have a fit already. And it's, let's start off properly. So, welcome to my Sunday morning. How do I always like lose track right before I'm about to say this? Sunday, June 23rd, 2024, roughly about 8:30 a.m. DMV Standard Time. I'm going to touch on the first, I would say, page or so of the introduction. And we are at the New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, copyright 2012. I wonder if I should, maybe I should, it's ants everywhere. Bless their little hearts. Okay, I ain't gonna mess with it. It's like literally just, okay, all right. Let's get this done, shall we? Let's get this done, which is part of my devotion to help it make it make sense. Help it make it make sense. Doing my part to help make it make sense. Yeah, I am going to give a small introduction. So the reason why I'm doing it like this, and it's not going to be the entire book because the book is chunky, but just to try to begin to do my part with laying the foundation. Because here's what I have found myself saying in the last couple of months. And with me saying it, arrived what I was saying. I wish I had someone that would talk to me and help me connect the dots, help me be able to stitch up context when content is being provided. And it seems to be a divine line, and I am even guilty of this or participate in it. Figuring that someone knows the way I know, or have read it the way I've read it, or even perceived it the way I've perceived it, and then get a little huffy when it's like, you don't know that? Why you ain't connect those dots yet? Are you serious? Are you being serious right now? You really don't know? And I have found out that in some instances, folks were not being honest. They really did know. But in other instances, like the ones that I was finding myself in, I honestly didn't know. I did not know how certain things fell in the whole grand scheme of history. There were some things like what's being presented in this book, had no idea. And even Michelle Alexander speaks about how she just didn't know. And I'm wondering if we're going to get to that part where she says that she was passionately unaware. No, I think it might be in the next one we tap into. Maybe I'll, hold on, let me see. Okay, so no. All right, so let's just begin. So, introduction, page 1. Jarvis Cotton cannot vote. Like his father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather, he has been denied the right to participate in electoral democracy. Cotton's family tree tells a story of several generations of black men who were born in the United States, but who were denied the most basic freedom that democracy promises: the freedom to vote for those who will make the rules and laws that governs one's life. Cotton's great-great-grandfather could not vote as a slave. His great-grandfather was beaten to death by the Ku Klux Klan for attempting to vote. His grandfather was prevented from voting by Klan intimidation. His father was barred from voting by poll taxes and literacy tests. Today, Jarvis Cotton cannot vote because he, like many black men in the United States, has been labeled a felon and is currently on parole. Cotton's story illustrates, in many respects, the old adage, the more things change, the more things remain the same. In each generation, new tactics have been used for achieving the same goals shared by the founding fathers. Denying African Americans citizenship was deemed essential to the formation of the original Union. Hundreds of years later, America is still not an egalitarian democracy. The arguments and rationalizations that have been trotted out in support of racial exclusion and discrimination in its various forms have changed and evolved, but the outcome has remained largely the same. The extraordinary percentage of black men in the United States are legally barred from voting today, just as they have been throughout most of American history. They are also subjected to legalized discrimination. We don't talk enough about legalized discrimination. In employment, housing, education, public benefits, and jury service, just as their parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents once were. What has changed since the collapse of Jim Crow? What has changed since the collapse of Jim Crow has less to do with the basic structure of our society than with the language we use to justify it. In the era of colorblindness, it is no longer socially permissible to use race explicitly as a justification for discrimination, exclusion, and social contempt. So we don't. Rather than rely on race, we use our criminal justice system to label people of color criminals, quote unquote criminals, and then engage in all the practices we supposedly left behind. Today, it is perfectly legal to discriminate against criminals in nearly all the ways that it was once legal to discriminate against African Americans. Once you're labeled a felon, the old forms of discrimination, employment discrimination, housing discrimination, denial of the right to vote, denial of educational opportunities, denial of food stamps, and other public benefits, and exclusion from jury service are suddenly legal. As a criminal, you have scarcely more rights and arguably less respect than a black man living in Alabama at the height of Jim Crow. We have not ended racial caste in America. We have merely redesigned it. And I think I'm on, because I already said I was going to do these in small bits. But just in that little bit alone is enough to bring idea to the fuckery that exists today. It exists and it's alive and well. And mm, I am constantly in tug of war with those around me and what they feel my social life should look like and what it is I should be doing with my time. And when it does not add up to clubbing and all the other shenanigans that social people like to do, I have to often remind folks I'm not anything special. Trust me. I have found out that there are many people on the case. And for that I'm forever grateful. Mainly because now and it's like I ain't crazy. The stuff that I am passionate about won't let me sleep. And it isn't about going to the beach. And that's not even saying that those that are doing whatever it is they doing, they shouldn't be doing it. This is just me standing up for me, saying that everybody got their groove in their lane. So instead of spending time telling me the way that I shouldn't be, just kind of pay attention to the way that I am, or don't. Or don't. Because my heart, my mind, my soul is always on things like this. It's always on ways to figure out the fuckery, because it's quiet and it's subtle and it has all of these nuances that usually don't get talked about at the dinner table. It doesn't get talked about on dates. It doesn't get talked, it damn sure don't get talked about at the club where everybody so it's like, when, who, what, when, where does time get made for us to truly dig into understanding how referendums are written or drafted, or legislation or policy is written and drafted? Like all of these things that even if it doesn't directly deal with you, 6 degrees, I guarantee you, it's going to hit somebody you love. And now we're living in the rippling effects, because folks be figuring we live in the age of information. How is it that you don't know this? And like I said, that's been me too. But then the more and more I reflect, I'm like, well, there's tons of things you don't know, you won't ever know. None of us leave here knowing all of it. I got my puzzle piece, you have your puzzle piece. And I think if we shift the paradigm, instead of trying to figure out, no, you wrong, no, you right, well, you wrong, well, no, you wrong. How about I bring my piece, you bring your piece, we share. Dr. Jared Ball said something in, and I'm trying to remember, I can't remember what the title. Maybe I'll put it in the description. But he did a talk recently in Baltimore, DMV. I've been telling most people that I'm going to start with the DMV. Born and raised, Washington, D.C. I'm going to start here. I can't think regionally, globally. I won't spread myself like that. Now, if it happens to be identical or familiar, and what it is that I'm studying can also help someone else who's also studying, because I'm not here to convince anybody. And I'm noticing that the people who are actually about that life, they really don't want to be mixing and mingling with people who's not about that life. So, and I'm saying all of that to say, in his talk, he says the value is in the exchange. And that way nobody have to even be worrying about touchy, bruisey egos, because no one's here to debate or go up against or replace. You bring yours, I bring mine. We exchange. And that's what a value should be. It's been several years now that I used to figure it used to make me cry. The injustice of, so especially with solopreneurs. And I will work with solopreneurs quite frequently, mainly from my career in the salon. So most folks in the salon business, they are independent contractors for the most part. So it really is cash and carry, and if you don't work, you don't get paid. There is no leave and vacation. I mean, you could take time, but you won't be pulling no money from it. So their frequency of income generation is slightly different from folks who get regular paychecks. And even and another thing that I've noticed, even in the way people process life is different. If you can only spend what you make, or you can only count on, or it is so unpredictable that you don't even have the chance to, most people like to say, plan and project. I don't want to get too far off, so let me bring it in. At the most part, what I am mainly trying to say is that there are folks that have always lived an unpredictable life. They couldn't bet on a paycheck every so often, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, however it goes. There's an entire group, there's an entire demographic of working people that really do have to hustle for every cent they get. And so life hits differently for them. Even their conversations and the way that they understand and navigate life is different. Those that have been caught up in this system don't have either. And I've been slowly but surely, quietly but respectfully understanding the world of legal ramifications, how it is that these conversations that will convince somebody to take a plea, or having the cast of a felon, and how even these folks have a different lens on life. And I notice how all of us, however we fit in it, usually take it for granted the parts of life we can't see. Blind spots are everywhere. And so I think I just want to keep that light on, keep that torch lit, because yes, there are a whole bunch of grown folks out here that cannot read or write, but they can listen to you read, and in a conversation can be help comprehend what's actually going on. There are people out here who can't write. And now it's to the point where it's all twined up in their self-esteem and their ability to process, and it not really, well, I was gonna say, and it not really mess around with their confidence, but it does. Because if you are in a room full of readers, you ain't get right be telling nobody you can't read it right. Because people clown you for that, for whatever fucking reason. People make you feel less than for that. As if we don't live in America when it was at one point in time illegal. And so now we are dealing with the rippling effects of grown-ass people having to take time with themselves to learn how to read and write. That's the last thing somebody should clown you for. Because at the end of the day, this society still requires that we understand what the fuck is going on so we can vote. And I'm going to say this, and I honestly don't give a fuck about the pushback. Asking somebody to vote on something that they have no idea about. Because see, even with my ancestors was tuned into what was going on. They understood what was going on in the intricate details of policy making. They could go up to and identify those that were responsible for these policies or the makings of. These are the makings of USA policy. And it was talked about around the dinner table. It was talked about on dates. It was talked about in the car. It was nobody talking about nothing to the equivalent of some raggedy ass sexy red. They were talking about the issues that affected them on the ground, in the roots, the grassroots of the whole kit and caboodle. That's what they were talking about. That's the way you found your mate. The real one. Not the one about to run all your cards up looking for a dumbass bag. Dumbass lashes and shit. Like, so I'll close with this. So a few days ago, me and my dad had a very interesting conversation. And I did get passionately overheated for several reasons. But what was grand and beautiful about it is that we both reminded each other about some things. And here's one of the monumental things that he reminded me about in his younger years, especially the life before I got here. My dad met my mom. She had already had a handful of kids when my dad met my mom. And then then my twin brothers and I came. And then somehow, some way things got wobbly and my mom peaced out and was gone for months. And if my dad was the dad of this day and age, he'd only took his kids, and Child Protective Service probably would have got the rest. But no, my dad stayed. My dad rallied up all my siblings and my oldest sister. And he did say he relied on my oldest sister a lot in terms of helping get children up in the morning, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, just making sure that everybody was in their place. Because at the end of the day, he still had to get up and go to work. Then we skipped to... And I'm saying all this just to say that that whole single mom, single dad thing is mainstream rhetoric. And I think most of us know that. But somehow, some way, it still gets to seep into the whole... And that whole, I ain't ready to take care of nobody else's kids, that's bullshit too. Because us as black folk have always had somewhere, somehow, somewhere, you being raised by somebody that's not your biological. So then we skip in and out of other details, and then come to find out, and I already knew this, but like I said, he brought it back to memory of his wife that put my baby sister, who is not hers, on her insurance. And then when she passed away, my baby sister was able to get survivor benefit. And it gets a bit complicated, but I'm really trying to point out how when you want to care and cover for somebody, you care and cover for someone. So, I just know that it's really, really different these days. And what I'm trying to say is, back then, it really wasn't the conversation of somebody trying to take advantage or I'm getting ready to get this dude because he he's in the 6 7 figure bracket. Or, and I'm not saying that it didn't exist then, I'm just saying that it was not as popular. That family was family because it was family. Did family still have fuckery going on? Indeed it did. Was everybody pleased with everybody? And no. And yet and still folks got covered. And it wasn't a whole bunch of your mama ain't shit, your daddy ain't shit. And I'm talking about in my example that I am using in terms of how those that filled in the gaps could have easily said, they ain't mine to deal with. And how so many people now, this day and age, would have been left unattended to. And it get tricky because I still have my complaints and shit about whatever it is going on, but that's just part of being in family. I think I got completely off topic. No, I didn't. So we have individuals, 6 degrees or otherwise, that in my heart right now feels forgotten. And in this book, Michelle Alexander promised that they would not be forgotten. And I honestly do believe that a part of them not being forgotten goes into each individual in terms of the work. Because we oftentimes wonder, well, what does that really mean, doing the work? What does doing the work really, really mean? And I truly believe that no one can answer that for an individual, that it's all personal in terms of identifying what it is that you can do to bring value to the exchange. So yeah, I'm not gonna hold it any longer. I will be back. It's a beautiful morning, it really is. So I think I'm gonna head up the hill before it gets too warm, if it's gonna do that today. And yeah, it was nice just being able to talk. And here's one thing that I really do know, and I know, you know, most logical folks don't really believe in the magic of divine timing or synchronicity. I do, and I've been seeing it work and permeate. And it's such a quiet wonder. It's not one of those things that's all loud and spotlighty. It happens right in the nooks and crannies of life, where this thing meets up with this thing, and it's just like, oh, hey. When neither one of those involved had anything to do with making that happen. Beautiful thing. So the synchronicity is, those who are meant to come across it will come across it. Those who are about this life will understand and get with and be in alignment with the way love goes. And there has to be attention in all the pockets and aspects of life, because we really have been indoctrinated into a whole big ass base bowl of fuckery. And I really don't believe that it was predicted that I don't believe it was actually predicted how folks were going to begin to deal with what it is that they were learning and exchanging. And so I'll end with this particular, what it is that I was starting to say before. It used to be a crying shame that certain things wasn't going to happen because there was no money being exchanged or no money being involved. When I used to do hair, I would never, and this is me, I'm not saying nobody else has to do this, just closing out with the example, because I have a bleeding heart for things not happening because money's in the way. And I used to challenge people, so we're not going to work with them because they can't pay us, as if the exchange itself is not rendering these priceless encounters, and they're biting me. As if the exchange itself, and I know people can't live off of exchange alone. Don't twist my words. But what I am saying is that sometimes the compensation is the experience itself. And if you are in a moment where the only thing that stands in the way of a collaboration or a project or musicians helping, not even helping, accommodating EYL with, which I found out are called bumpers. I didn't realize that. I'm starting to ramble. Just hold on. I bumped into a documentary about commercials and advertising and TV programming, and how these little things are called bumpers that they would stick in their little jingle, little catchy little woo 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 between segments, so that you know the closing of one segment and the beginning of another segment. Didn't even know it was a thing. That thrilled me to no end, because it was a piece of science where it's like, I see this with every piece of programming, whether it's cable or regular TV or whatever it is. I've noticed that. So just to be able to now put content to context about how that was done, why that was done, that it's actually a thing. We take so much for granted. We really do. So EYL put out a call for artists to come through and help out with their musical jingles for the bumpers in between segments. And I think I was a bit disappointed to hear that no artist in the DMV could pull up and say, you know what, that's right up my alley. And even Dr. Ball said, it wasn't even a thought that we wouldn't pay them. But nobody even inquired. So, and we have musicians in the DMV. We have local musicians in the DMV that could probably pump that out before lunch. And Dr. Ball is at Morgan State, so he is local. So if or how it goes, that if you're into those things, I think I'm going to put the link to I Mix What I Like in the description as well, so that if you want to check him out, and he really is on the ground, and he is about that radical life. He is about informing and teaching, and he's a professor of a doctor of communications, for Pete's sake. Go figure, because that's exactly what it is that we need, to keep that flow of exchange very valuable, very lucrative, very vibrant. Because that is truly what makes the world go round. So I'll be back soon to pick up where I left off. And so, yeah, until next time, I do wish you well.